that's what makes the world a unique place, is that we all have our own unique goals and our own unique wants. I've been guilty of that myself. I've been in rooms where people, are doing this amount of, work or making this amount of money. And I'm like, that's what I want.
Welcome to The Growth Mindset, the podcast for ambitious real estate and mortgage professionals. Hosted by Adam Crosley and Riddle, this show dives into entrepreneurial strategies, sales techniques, and mindset hacks designed to fuel your career growth. Get ready to learn from top producers, gain actionable insights, and start your journey towards success. Here's your hosts, Adam and Rick.
Welcome to another episode of The Growth Mindset with Riddle and Adam Crosley.
Riddle. Welcome, everybody.
Yeah, glad to have you.
Buongiorno, everybody. I'm going to act like I'm Italian.
Yeah, welcome, everybody.
The last episode, we talked about getting started, just like how we're getting started with a podcast.
Exactly.
And I think this time, I think we should go deeper on that, right? And talk about, now that we've got the mindset to grow and just getting started, getting out of our own way, like you said, turning the car on, right, is the first step. Getting to the gym, I think we use that analogy. Now that you're there, how do you get from there to our goals, right? I think that's what we should talk about is how to start putting a plan, developing a plan and putting it in motion.
Well, I think if you're going to have any plan, the first thing that you need to do is, once you get started, because you need motivation to start, right? But then you need discipline to kind of continue on, because motivation only carries you so far. But where are you going? And I think you got to kind of begin with the end in mind. Like, hey, I'm going to get in the car and I'm going to go south. Okay, well, where? How far south am I going to drive? I live way upstate New York. South means a lot to me.
You can go south a lot of places. You can go south for a very long time. Am I going
to Florida? Am I going to Virginia? Am I going to California? So, but and I think that's one of the biggest problems is, in life. I have a lot of friends who are in their mid 50s and they're like, I didn't get where I wanted. I haven't done anything with my life. And I was having this conversation with a buddy of mine, very dear friend of mine, recently. And, he was like, Adam, I just, you've done a lot. Like, how did you do it? And I just kind of said, I know where I want, I know what I want and I go after it. I think a lot of times people in life, they don't have a plan, right? What's that old Henry Ford quote? Failing to plan is planning to fail, right? And
or a goal without a plan is just a wish.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of ways to say it. And I think a lot of times people in life, they don't get to where they want to go because they don't have the plan, the roadmap of where they're trying to go. And then they get there with amazing accuracy. They show up somewhere and they're like, this isn't where I wanted to be, but this is where I got, because this is the route that my habits got me to. Because without a plan, we're just a summation of our own habits, I believe.
Well, it's funny. Last episode, I had a quote, right? And I, it's one of my favorite quotes. A good plan executed is better than a great plan never executed. Mm-hmm. That being said, and the point of that is, at some point you got to execute, right? Like you got to have, but the flip side of that is you got to have a plan, right? You got to have some type. It can adjust along the way. And I think a lot of times, a lot of people go south without the plan, without knowing how much gas is in the tank, right? Like, I'm just going to head south. And I think you've got to kind of put a goal, right? And, I think you and I both have vision boards. I think it starts with a vision, right? We've got to have the vision of what we want, make it clear and definitive. Right? You can't say, I want to be rich. If you're in the mortgage business, I want to close a lot of loans. Mm-hmm. Well, no. You got to reverse engineer. Like, I want to do this. How am I going to get to this? And then I think the other thing is that, so that's the plan. And in it, you've got to kind of discover, is the juice worth the squeeze? Mm-hmm. Right? Like, I want to go south. Right? Like, that's my goal. I want to go to Florida. but I can only afford 1 tank of gas. And if you live in the North Country like we do, you're not going to get there, right? Unless you're solar or electric, right? So I think that you've got to put some thought to your plan, right? To make sure that that it's somewhat thought out, right? You can't say, "Oh, I'm going to close 100 loans next year," right? Well, how are you going to get them? Well, I'm going to buy leads. All right. Well, how much are you going to spend? As much as it takes to get to 100 loans.
Yeah.
Well, you might be spending a lot of money and not making any money, right? The flip side, I want to close 100 loans. Well, how many leads do you need, right? And that's where you got to kind of reverse engineer, your growth mindset is setting, having a vision, make it defined, make it not only defined in terms of what you want, but a time frame of when you want to get there.
Correct.
Right. And having it many steps. And, I'm not a big fan of 5-year plans, 3-year plans, 2-year plans, even 1-year plans, unless you can break it down into a quarter, a week, a day. You know what I mean? Like,
great
how are you
book,
going to improve?
The 90-day year. And that's what it talks about is take your year-long goals, because most humans are procrastinators and most of us don't get our goals done until the end of the year, right? Where if you can focus on your goals in a 12-week bite, I think that's what it is, the 12-week year, I think that's what it's called.
Yes.
And it's what is the bite, the chunk of your goal you can actionably take this week so that you can hit your goal, whatever it is, every 90 days, every quarter.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, right? I'm sure that I'm not the only one listening, guilty of this. But when we were in school, we probably waited till the night before the book report or the science project was due to start the science project and book report. Right?
You got started the night before. I usually got started the morning of.
Well, there were definitely times I did my homework in homeroom. So, but it was also not my plan to it wasn't my vision as a growth mindset. And we talked about this before. Your goals and your plan should be your own and not somebody else's.
Absolutely.
It shouldn't be if you're a loan officer or a salesperson, you have a manager, unless they're paying your salary. But if you're a true entrepreneur, 100% commission hustler in the business, don't follow someone else's goal and don't follow someone else's. Well, you can learn from other people's plans, but your vision is your vision.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think it's super important to have your own vision. I mean, your vision can rhyme with other people, but that's what makes the world a unique place, is that we all have our own unique goals and our own unique wants. And I've been guilty of that myself. I've been in rooms where people, are doing this amount of, work or making this amount of money. And I'm like, that's what I want. And then, but how they multiply to get there, for me to do that with my equation, it's just the amount of units I would need, again, being in the mortgage space, like if my average loan size is so small compared to somebody who's got a $600,000 average loan size, it's just harder for me to do it. Nothing wrong with that, but I just need to manipulate other pieces of my equation if I want to get there, right? And I think it's super important that everybody has their own unique goals, and you're not just copying and stealing goals from other people. You're finding things that are actionable and meaningful to you.
Yeah, and it's okay to have the big pie in the sky goal, right? The exotic sports car, the boat, the large mansion, right? As this big end goal, whatever it is. But I think it's hard to plan. You've got to do them in little steps. Like you said, like you're not going to go from very low production or new or starting out just, living paycheck to paycheck to that large mansion, right? That $1 million property or doing whatever it is in 12 weeks.
Right.
But, and I think and that's okay, right? Because if you do the 12-week year, 12 weeks in a row, or 12 years in a row, right? In 2 years, you'll be a lot. Right. So I think that's where, what's that?
How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
That's right. So in starting, it's having the vision, chopping it down into smaller visions, and then putting a plan together.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that I would assume in most everyone that's watching this podcast, and obviously we're both salespeople, we're both in the mortgage industry, but anyone listening to an entrepreneur, it really is about letting people know what you do. Right. You got to be really good at what you do. And that's probably step one, is become a master craft. Dedicate time to learn your craft. In the mortgage business, learn your time to know, FHA, VA, conventional, reading credit reports, understanding debt to income ratios, and all that fun stuff, right? What a DSCR is. There's a value to that mastering of the craft, right? Just like if you're a real estate agent, so I'm sure there's going to be realtors listening to the podcast. Knowing square footage and styles of homes and things to look out for.
Exactly. Yeah.
So but that's step one. Because there's a lot of people in this world, in our industry, that are really good at what they do. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that aren't really, because they didn't take the master class. But I always give this analogy and to all salespeople. I would say, and I'll ask you, Adam. I don't think you're a professional singer.
No, not professionally, but karaoke.
You probably have hummed a tune before, but most people aren't. Right, but we've all watched American Idol.
Yep.
Right, at least in the beginning. I don't even know if it's still on. I'm talking about Simon, Paula, and Randy.
Yeah.
You watch it. I don't know if you get it up in the Adirondacks, American Idol, but way back when, right? Like we watched like that opening round, and you and I, not professional singers, right? Not in the industry, right? Knew the really good ones. We knew they were going to get 3 yeses. A tear to our eye came on when we heard them, right? Like we're like, oh my gosh, how is this person not famous before, right? Yeah. They're angels are ringing through. We also knew the really bad ones, right? The ones like the jokes, right?
You can just tell who's a professional and who's not, who's going to succeed and who's not.
Right. But there was this middle group that you and I, right? You and I would be like, yeah, sounds like someone I hear on the radio. They're pretty good. I don't have yeah. And Paula would be like, oh, I love you, great voice. Randy would be like, great pitch dog. Yeah, you got a great voice. And they get to Simon. And Simon's like, they're 100% right. But you're never going to make it because there's nothing memorable about you.
Ooh.
And I think about that as sales. You could be the greatest loan officer in the world, the greatest realtor in the world, the greatest salesperson in the world. You could be the greatest chef in the world, the greatest. But if they don't know you exist, you're never going to be successful.
Yeah.
Right? Like master your craft. You got to be a master of your craft to outknow your competition.
Right.
But that's only stage. I know a lot of loan officers that have marginal success, but are great loan officers. I also know people that are, but aren't as successful as they could be. I know people that read that, like I couldn't tell you what's going on with rates, up or down, reading the MBS highway and all this. I don't care about that stuff. There's nothing I can control. Right. Yep. And I've hired people in my times who are financial planners, like, oh, I came from the stock market. And I know right away they're not going to be, because there's nothing unique about them.
Yeah.
It's about your network. What's there saying? Your network is your net worth.
Yeah.
Right. So getting started, building a plan, and then figuring out how you're going to extend that plan. But most importantly is getting the word out that you exist in some form. And I call it marketing. And that doesn't mean paid advertising, doesn't mean social media, Facebook. It means
it's now pressing palms and talking to people. It's finding the influencers. And I taught a class earlier today, and I invited 40 people. I had 3 people show up. But in this little small town, those 3 people do 30% of the business. The room was full,
Yeah.
And because it's about who you're talking to and leveraging their network.
Right.
And building the right relationships and making sure that the people that we're really going after are the qualified people, the people that have the ability to refer you business.
Well, that's actually, you just said a mouthful, which is a whole nother episode, is not only letting them know you exist, letting the right people know you exist.
Exactly. Because I mean, there's 350 million people in America. You only need to know about 100 to usually succeed in most businesses.
You know, that you just literally struck a nerve. You ever hear the I don't know what fable it is, and I love plagiarizing. I hear great stories and I plagiarize them and make them my own. But
Okay.
I don't know who to credit this. But there's a story of the shoe salesman who goes to Africa. The first shoe salesman comes in, and you're like, oh, you know what? Take our product, sell shoes in Africa, and he comes back, didn't sell a single shoe. He goes, there's no market there. Nobody wears shoes.
Nobody wears shoes.
The next guy goes, different company comes back and says, this place is awesome. No one wears shoes. Right. And he's in his mind, he's like, that's the available market.
The entire market, everybody needs what I have. Yeah.
Right. Versus nobody has, right? So it's your mindset.
Perception.
And perception. Right.
Yeah.
So it's knowing, it's networking, but it's also maybe that draws to a different thing. It's looking at every opportunity as an opportunity with the right mental attitude.
Yeah.
I probably jumped the shark a little bit on that conversation, but in getting started, but it is right. It is looking at the opportunity as an opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Well,
everywhere.
And I think, kind of reminding to the beginning of this conversation, most people don't know where they're going and they get there with amazing accuracy. The reason why I think successful people are successful is because they know what they want, because they know what they're going. The reticular activator in their brain is looking for the right things. And that way, when they see the right thing, they go right towards it. Then they go right to the next thing, and they're able to get there faster because when the right opportunity pops in front of them, they know that it's the right one.
Yeah, you got it right. It's you've got to know what you want.
Yeah, we got to know how you're going to get there. You have to know that this is the next place to go, and that this potential thing that looks like it could be really good, it might be a distraction, and I need to stay on target and on focus.
Yeah, that's part of the business plan, the planning of qualifying your opportunity and making sure that you're going after the right market, whatever the market that may be.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think it's what they say, let thy own self be true, right? Like Crown started 5 years ago, and I knew that as I was building it, I could make some real differentiators in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
But I also know I'm not going to be a fit for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. Like I know I'm not fit for maybe a mortgage broker, maybe a banker, maybe someone that's looking for like the really big company, someone that's looking for the really, really small company. Right. But I knew that I could build something that was unique.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have collectively built something unique. Now just letting the world know we exist.
Yeah.
And whether they join us or not, okay. And I always tell people, my focus in our company is growth and building, and growth is really in my world is recruiting and building realtor relationships, right? And getting people to know who we are and what we do differently. And I've kind of learned it's like, I don't need to sell. I just need to show them under the hood. And if they like what they see, I don't need to convince them. I don't need to. Yeah. I just want to show them. And if they like it, great. Well, then I'll start selling. If they're like, that's not for me, that's okay. Because there's 350 million people that I only need is 100, right?
You don't need a lot, exactly. And and by knowing where you're going, you have that permission to be okay that most of the people are going to be a no. Most people aren't going to work out right. Most people aren't going to be a good fit. It's kind of like Goldilocks, right? And is kind of what I picked up on you saying. A lot of people that you talk to in recruiting and trying to recruit, loan officers, they want the big box store. That's not us. Cool. You're just not a good fit. Well, you want a tiny, tiny, tiny little company and have everything tailored. Okay, well, that's not it. But if this is what you're looking for, and you want this, this, and this, then you've come home. And And I think that's super empowering and powerful, knowing who you are and knowing what value you bring to the marketplace, whatever that is. Because the reality is, most people, for most salespeople, aren't a good fit. And knowing what your niche is and staying in your own lane really, I think, is empowering.
Yeah, and I think, I think what happens is I think of loan officers specifically, right? And some loan officers, it's a shotgun approach. I do it all. I do commercial loans. I do
Yeah.
203K loans. And the reality is they're trying to find their niche.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens is then they get all these weird opportunities that they never deliver on.
Yeah.
Never done a 203K loan. They've never done a commercial loan, whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the beginning, it's hard, right? You've got to kind of have a shotgun approach to find out your marketplace.
What flavor it is, what you like, and what's good. But I think as you develop and grow, yeah, you kind of got to pick what's fun for you, what's needed in your marketplace, and know everything about that.
Yeah. And it is really just about knowing people. Yeah. Again, talking about the mortgage business, one thing I'm sure a lot of realtors will be listening on this podcast as well. It's letting them know you exist, right? And I always say that people fall into one of three categories. Every single person.
Okay.
They could either be your customer, they could refer you people, or they could refer you to people who will refer you people.
Yeah.
Right. So I think about it, right? It's like, I meet a real estate agent, I build a relationship with them. I could do their own loan. I could help them with their own properties. If I do a really good job, they're going to refer me to their customers. Guess what? They also know a lot of realtors. Maybe they know their broker owner. Maybe they know the people in their office, their sphere of influence. They can introduce me to other that can refer me business. Right. And that's realtors. That could be a financial planner, it could be an accountant, it could be your mom. You could do your mom's loan. Your mom could refer her to all her friends. Next, she's referring it to her boss.
Yep.
And now you're right. So that's the growth mindset, is taking every single person, looking at it as an opportunity. And another thing that's great about our industry is everyone also falls in one of two categories. They either own a home or they don't own a home.
Yep.
Right? Ones that don't own a home,
they need to buy.
In most cases, they want the dream of home ownership. Wealth in America built on home ownership, right? They don't think they can, or they don't think it's the right time. And our job is to help them, right? And the ones that do, they have the single most asset that can be leveraged, right? They could cash out to get more homes, to get more leverage, right? To save debt, whatever it is. So I was looking like every single person could be a customer, and they can refer us to people, and they can refer to people who can refer us to people. And I don't know if that's growth mindset per se, but it's like looking at every opportunity as what it is. Now, again, that's kind of a shotgun approach. It's a wide open point of view. It's like doing the loan for someone making no money on it, or doing a $50,000 loan, for a person buying their first time house, to find out that their parents are, multimillionaires and have 15 rental properties.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
So you never know, right? That's why you got to treat everyone special, right? You got to treat them everyone like family, because there is an opportunity.
Yeah.
You just got to ask.
Absolutely. There's a whole episode to be unpacked in just asking as well.
I literally said that, like, bing. Right. And that's part of the growth mindset, is knowing there's an opportunity everywhere.
Yep.
And to make sure to always ask.
Well, and if you're looking for opportunities will find you. I think if you put it out to the universe that you're open for business and that you're looking for business will come. You have to turn over rocks, and just in the process, it's usually not the meal I'm looking for is usually not under that rock, but something about telling the world that I'm open for business, it seems to come and find me, so.
Well, it's funny. I worked at a real estate company, Weichert Realtors, right? They're based in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And their thing was, there's a name tag all the time, wherever you go. Always wear your name tag. Big yellow name tag. Why? Because it's a billboard.
Exactly.
I met another that wherever we went, we'd go out to lunch, dinner, whatever. He was in the mortgage business. He would say to the waitress, like, do you own a home? Right. And if they said yes, like, what's your interest rate? Right. Like every single time. He would just ask. I said, no, I don't own a home. I always want to buy one, blah, 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 blah. Here's my card. Right. Like we did. That's even more aggressive mindset than me. Right. Like, that's just letting him know. Right. This, he made fun out of it. Right. Like,
exactly.
But you know what? He got leads out of it because I was with him probably at lunch in my, 9 years in a really, he was an old boss of mine, 9 years, probably went out to lunch 10 times a year, 90 times, so 90 times I was in front of him when he asked somebody. I know I remember him getting leads out of it.
Yeah. Well,
for free.
And you can write off.
I'm not, but my brother
is. And you could write off the lunch then, right? So,
right.
There you go. I was fishing. I was prospecting while I was eating lunch, right? So
working all the time.
Nice. Well, we're
coming to the top of the hour,
but dude, Rick, I so appreciate having these conversations with you, and I think it is super impactful to know where you're going. Wherever you start, you have to have that plan and know where you're going, and I think that is as important, if not more important, than getting started, right? You need to start, like we need to get going, but we also need to know where the hell we're going. Because we can reverse engineer
our last podcast, we talked about just starting, getting the key in the ignition and turning the key.
Exactly.
Today is about putting in your GPS where you want to go.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's the first two, the first two things is, and we'll continue of how to get there and how to get there efficiently and how to get there without running out of gas and, staying focused on, getting off path and maybe even talking about when you get off the derailed off path will be future episodes. But right now, I think it was good. So
nice. Well, thank you for joining us on today's episode of The Growth Mindset, and we'll see you next time.
You've been listening to The Growth Mindset, hosted by Adam Crosley and Rick Riddle. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with your colleagues. Stay tuned for more actionable insights to fuel your career success. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.